The latest on the tragedy in Texas, a small community shaken after a gunman opens fire inside a church, leaving more than 24 killed. We have live team coverage with the very latest.
Breaking story overnight, Japan joining with the U.S. when it comes to handling the crisis in North Korea, what the two leaders say they are prepared to do.
And 3 people arrested after an alleged drug deal using a special needs school van. The driver of that van set to face a judge now.
This is 7 News Today in New England.
8 o'clock, good morning to you. Thanks so much for spending your time with us. I'm Chris Anderson.
I'm Krista Delcamp. Much more on your top stories, but daylight savings time means, we get to see the sun a little bit earlier around here. So this is kind of nice.
Extra hour of sleep for our bodies, right?
That was very nice. Although it looks a little overcast right now, but it's warm out there, Ren.
It is, yeah. It's mild, and we're not in the thick of things when it comes to the wind or the rain yet, but we are going to increase our wind speeds here into the day. We're talking about some gusts this afternoon up to 30 miles per hour, and also the likely chance for rain. So grab the rain gear. Temperatures are mild, but again, once we start getting blustery and rainy, it's going to feel a little bit cooler than what the temperatures actually suggest. 66 degrees in Norwood, 65 in Fitchburg, upper 50s still in Worcester with mostly cloudy skies. Already starting to move some rain into northwestern Massachusetts, and we do have the chance for rain this morning, but just the slight chance east of 495. Better chance for that west of 495. This cold front moving through the Bay State here today, ushering in much cooler air by tonight, but through the day today, it's still pretty mild. By the lunch hour, many of us are close to 70 degrees, and as we head into the afternoon, we've got the likely chance for rain. Heavy at times, especially for those of us that manage a few thunderstorms. We do have the chance for that this afternoon into the evening commute. Your evening commute is a soggy, slow one, but the rain wraps up pretty quickly, even past 8 o'clock. We're likely dry in Boston, with the Cape and the Islands dealing with some straggler showers.
Okay, speaking of the commute, let's check the one here this morning. Elena, how's it looking?
Krista, good morning. Pretty slow out there, especially on the expressway. We had a lot of earlier issues. Fortunately, they all have cleared. This most recent one was right around Morrissey Boulevard, that exit there, but you can see cars are moving there. Yeah, they're moving a little bit slower, and there will be a little bit more red on those maps, too. Red on the expressway northbound, also red south of town, 324-95. We're looking pretty heavy there. If you're headed in toward Framingham, that's going to take you a little bit longer than normal, and it will be stop and go up toward 128 after that. Not too bad. We do have a crash up in the Lexington area again on 128 southbound. So 128 southbound not going to be too fun right now. That crash is right around Route 2A. If you're taking 93, and that's going to be busy, but busier after 128. The Tobin, of course, is heavy. Your drive time is going to be a little bit over 30 minutes on the expressway, about 20 on the Pike, and over 30 on 93.
To the latest this morning on the Texas church massacre, the small community devastated after a man with a rifle burst into the church and opened fire. 26 people killed and at least 20 others injured in what has now become the worst mass shooting in Texas state history.
And the town of Sutherland Springs coming together to remember the victims and sharing their grief. The youngest victim of this attack, just 5 years old. The oldest, 72. And now CNN is reporting that at least 8 of them were from the same family.
We have team coverage for you of this tragic situation this morning. And we want to start with 7's Matt Rascone, who joins us with the latest on what we know. Matt?
Yeah, Chris, a horrific attack on this tiny community of just a few hundred people outside of San Antonio, and the suspect spared no one. The youngest victim, just 5 years old, the oldest, 72, after a man opened fire on dozens of people gathered for worship.
Let us build your kingdom as something constructive in the face of destruction.
Prayers and pain in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
Be with us, dear, as we learn to deal with this thing.
The most recent American community in shock and mourning after a gunman opened fire at a church service, killing more than 24 people.
In tragic times, Americans always pull together. We are always strongest when we are unified.
The dead range in age from 5 to 72 years old. The Texas governor calls it the largest mass shooting in the state's history.
There's so many families who've lost family members, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters.
Authorities say the gunman, dressed in all black and wearing tactical gear, was seen at a gas station before he crossed the street to the church and opened fire.
And it's something we all say does not happen in small communities. Well, we found out today it does.
A witness pulled out a weapon and returned fire, prompting the gunman, identified as Devin Kelly, to drop his rifle and take off in an SUV. The man who returned fire followed him, and police say Kelly crashed before he was found dead inside the SUV with several other weapons inside. attacked.
At this time, we don't know if it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or if he was shot by our local resident who engaged him in gunfire.
Happiness is the Lord.
This is a recording of the church's service last week. The pastor and his wife were out of town, but their 14-year-old daughter is among those killed.
As governor, I ask for every mom and dad at home tonight that you put your arm around your kid and give your kid a big hug and let them know how much you love them.
While the heartache continues, an investigation is now underway to determine how and why another American community is dealing with a mass shooting.
To the wounded and the families of the victims, all of America is praying for you, supporting you, and grieving alongside of you.
President Trump said he is monitoring the situation in Japan on his long trip in Asia. The president called the shooting a mental health problem at the highest level. Matt Rascone, 7 News, Today New England.
Matt, thank you. And there are so many questions, as you can imagine, surrounding the suspect in this latest mass shooting this morning.
And again, officials have identified the gunman here as a 26-year-old by the name of Devin Patrick Kelly. They've been poring over social media, hoping to find anything that sheds light on a possible motive. So we're going to go to Kim Lucy with more on what we know about this 26-year-old thus far. Kim?
That's right. According to the Pentagon, the suspect had a history of domestic abuse. Authorities don't believe he was linked to any organized terrorist groups, but they say they're still trying to figure out what spurred him to walk into this church and start shooting.
We're just starting to learn more about Devin Kelly, the man authorities say gunned down children as young as 5 years old and elderly churchgoers into their 70s.
We believe he's a young white male, maybe in his early 20s. He was dressed in all black tactical type gear and was wearing a ballistic vest.
Law enforcement sources say Kelly is 26 years old. The Pentagon confirms he previously served in the Air Force but was court-martialed in 2012 for assaulting his spouse and child. He received a bad conduct discharge, confinement for 12 months, and reduction in rank. A U.S. official says Kelly purchased the gun in April of 2016 in San Antonio. When he filled out the background check paperwork at the store, he checked the box to indicate he didn't have disqualifying criminal history, listing an address in Colorado. Sources say Kelly lived in a San Antonio suburb. They're looking at social media posts he made in the days before the attack on the church, including one that appeared to show an AR-15. Police say they found more weapons in Kelly's white SUV after his death. Security experts say while it may be difficult to accept, churches are an easy target. We may have to start having the tough discussions about increased security outside of church.
We have to begin to put in layers of security. We have to rely on possibly hiring police details. We have to think about engaging our church congregations in a security mindset, having at least training, at the very least having training to be able to understand how to recognize the threat as they potentially will come through the front door.
Now, police have searched Kelly's car and home, but have not said anything about a possible motive in the attack. Kim Lucy, 7 News, Today New England.
Kim, thank you. Meantime, Massachusetts lawmakers taking to Twitter to express their frustration after this shooting. In fact, Senator Ed Markey wrote this: when a shooter guns down innocent children and families in a holy place, there can be no rest. Congress must act now to stop gun violence. And Senator Elizabeth Warren adding, I'm heartsick for the victims, families, and community of Sutherland Springs, but I'm more than heartsick. I'm angry. How many more people must die at churches or concerts or schools before we stop letting the NRA control this country's gun policies?
For the very latest on the Texas church massacre, anytime you can turn to our website at WHDH.com or download our 7 mobile and tablet apps.
And we have breaking news from overnight. 2 nations standing together, President Trump and the Prime Minister of Japan, seeing eye to eye when it comes to the crisis in North Korea. The two men agreeing that all options are on the table when it comes to this nuclear threat. So let's join Nicole with more details on that.
Yeah, Krista, President Trump reaffirming his harsh rhetoric toward North Korea. He and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe believe that for the first time, or the time with patience for the communist nation is now over. President Trump says he wants the U.S. and Japan to have a more reciprocal relationship.
I have to say, for the last many decades, Japan has been winning. You do know that.
President Trump said the free trade he wants the U.S. and Japan to have doesn't exist right now.
But I know that we will be able to come up with trade deals and trade concepts that are going to be fair to both countries, and actually, I think, will actually be better for both countries.
But one issue the two leaders see eye to eye on: North Korea.
Japan consistently supports the position of President Trump when he says that all options are on the table.
People said that my rhetoric is very strong, but look what's happened with very weak rhetoric over the last 25 years. Look where we are right now.
Both men also offered condolences to the victims of Sunday's shooting massacre in Texas.
Our hearts are broken, but in dark times, and these are dark times, such as these, Americans do what they do best. We pull together.
The White House says the president's trip to Asia won't be cut short because of the shooting. His next stop on the 5-country tour is South Korea, where they will discuss trade and North Korea's nuclear capabilities. President Trump also says he expects to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin during his trip. Chris, back over to you.
Okay, Nicole, thank you. Happening today, former Congressman Anthony Weiner is set to report to prison right here in Massachusetts. Weiner is scheduled to arrive at Devon's Federal Medical Center in Ayer. Weiner will spend 21 months in prison after pleading guilty to sending obscene text messages to a 15-year-old girl. He is required to register as a sex offender and will receive treatment while he's behind bars. He stepped down from Congress back in 2011.
Also this morning, the driver of a special needs school van expected to face a judge. One of 3 people accused of selling heroin out of that van right near a city park in Framingham, which is where we find 7's Victoria Warren. She's live in that city right now with the latest. Vicki?
Good morning. Those 3 individuals expected to go before a judge today. Now, Framingham police tell us that an officer happened to be in the park, saw this school van pull in, and then saw them conduct a heroin deal.
Rudencia Montez fired from her job driving special needs students to school after police say she used her school van as a mobile drug operation. Framingham police say an officer spotted the van marked school bus pull into a park. There were no children on board, but police say Montez was with another man, Juan Miranda Ortiz. That's when police say Karine Gentile pulled up and bought a bag of heroin. Police say when the officer questioned the suspects, he found another bag of heroin on the school van. All 3 were arrested. Montez worked for the Accept Education Collaborative, a nonprofit that provides transportation for special needs students. In addition to firing her, the company also let parents whose kids were on her route know what happened. A company statement says, "The well-being of our students is paramount, and we will continue to take all steps needed to provide them with safe and effective transportation to and from school."
And we should learn more when all 3 suspects appear before a judge later today. Live this morning from Framingham District Court, Victoria Warren, 7 News Today, New England.
Right now, investigators are searching for clues after discovering a body in a river in Leominster. This was the scene. You're about to see it near Pleasant Street over the weekend. Police aren't saying exactly what they think happened, but they did spend most of Sunday gathering evidence in that area. A woman has now died after being involved in a hit and run in Westport on Saturday night. Police say the woman was running on State Road when she was hit, and she later died. Right now, the whole thing is still under investigation, and anyone with any information is asked to get in contact with Westport Police.
5 people left looking for a place to live today after their home went up in flames Sunday morning. This was the scene on Burgess Street in Lowell, and you can see how intense that fire was. In fact, the heat from the flames so intense that they melted the siding on some houses nearby. There you can see it. Officials say that home is likely a total loss.
Coming up on 8:14 here on your Monday, much more ahead on the news station, including stepping up to the plate. The Red Sox officially introducing their newest manager today, and why he's no stranger to baseball here in Boston.
And a local landmark sustaining some severe damage when fire breaks out inside of a popular restaurant in Scituate.
And how friends and family are honoring a 19-year-old hit and killed by a dump truck in Dorchester.